barrel contours, RMRs, and more this week on Mail Call Mondays. Mail Call Mondays is brought to you by Modular Driven Technologies. If you need a chassis system for your precision rifle, check out MDTTAC.com. I'm John McQuay with 8541 Tactical, and this is Mail Call Mondays, the show that answers your questions about precision rifles, optics, and equipment. Welcome to another Mail Call Mondays, and this Monday we are kicking off our first question from Patreon. And Mike asks, barrel contours. I'm a few years into shooting and would like to build a custom Remington 700 with Remage barrel and 6.5 Creedmoor. Mail Call Mondays Season 7, Episode 31 was a great start, but looking over the barrel contours at NSS, I got a little lost with all the options. Sporter, heavy sporter, light varmint, light palma, etc. What are the advantages of the different contours offered? Love the channel and happy to be a Patreon supporter. Well, Mike, thank you very much for supporting us on Patreon. For those of you out there that are not sure what Patreon is, it's a very easy way for you to support the content that you know and love. We'll leave a link down below to Patreon if you want to know more. Now, Mike, to answer your question, barrel contours are a very personal topic. A lot of personal preference factors into it. Now, a heavier barrel will give you the greater potential for accuracy to a point. As a barrel heats up and that material starts to expand, any inconsistencies in that barrel can cause it to warp one direction or another. A heavier barrel tends to resist this a little bit more, and it has more mass that will absorb that heat for longer strings of fire. Now, of course, a heavier barrel will take longer to heat up to a high degree, but it'll also take longer to cool off. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there. Usually, though, for what we do, you want a heavier barrel because it resists that warping for longer. It really is more consistent than a lighter weight barrel, and that weight helps to absorb some of the recoil. More mass will keep that rifle in place, especially when we start shooting 6.5 Creedmoor, 6 Creedmoor, etc., those lighter rounds. Now, the con to that, of course, is now you have a heavier rifle overall, and you have a heavier barrel out front, so that's going to make the rifle more front heavy. That will affect how it performs on barricades when you are trying to balance the rifle right in this location. It will definitely have more of an effect when you go to a sling supported position. Me personally, I like to stay in that Remington varmint and Sendero, sometimes referred to as a number 13, that type of barrel profile. I really believe for me that gives me the best balance between practical accuracy for PRS type competitions and light enough weight that it's not killing you trying to muscle it around into various different positions, or if you have to shoot unsupported. Now, a lot of guys out there really favor heavier barrels getting into that M40, MTU contour, etc. I have one rifle, actually two rifles, that have heavier contours. I have a Krieger extremely heavy contour. I can't remember exactly what the taper is, but it's almost full bowl on the 243 Accuracy International. I want to say it's like a number 9, but it is a fairly heavy barrel on that rifle. And then, of course, I have an M40 contour on my M40A1 because that was the barrel that those rifles came with. And I don't really feel that I gain a ton of extra accuracy. And again, we're talking about practical accuracy in a field shooting environment with those barrels versus the Sendero contour barrel. Now, the rifle I have in front of me, this is the 20-inch AAC SD. So it does have a 20-inch Sendero contour barrel. It is a factory Remington barrel on this rifle, so the accuracy is not that razor's edge accuracy. We get okay accuracy out of the Hammer 4 forged factory Remington barrel. But if this was a Bartlein or Krieger or Rock Creek or any of the other premium barrels out there with the same contour, we would likely get considerably better accuracy. Now, if you're into bench rest shooting, that is where that heavier barrel, as long as you stay within your weight restrictions, really comes into play. And that is where I would say go as heavy as you possibly can go and maintain your weight class, because you're going to put that weight somewhere in the rifle. Putting the weight in the barrel is better. Now, in PRS and NRL, you're starting to see this transition from lighter weight rifles like the setup that we have here in front of me into these 20, 22 pound plus rifles. Now, if you're going to go that route, if you're going to build a really heavy rifle, then go ahead and build it up with a really heavy barrel and then put some weight in the buttstock to offset that barrel and get your balance out, and then you're good to go. There's really not a lot of reason to go with something like a proof carbon fiber wrapped barrel and then hang a bunch of weight in your forend. We have a chassis on deck like the MDT ACC chassis that allows you to put an obscene amount of weight in the forend of the rifle if that's really what you want to do. And yes, that will help absorb some of that recoil. It will not really absorb, but it will resist some of that recoil because it's more mass holding the rifle in place. But you're really just better off building a rifle with a heavier barrel and then using weights on the aft end to tune it to exactly where you want to be. But again, that's just my opinion. A lot of this is how you build out the rifle. Now, if you take something like the ACC chassis and you put weights on the front of it for competition, you can pull those weights off for hunting. So if it's a dual purpose rifle like that, then I could see going that route with a lighter weight barrel and then loading weights on the front. But if it is just a competition rifle, I'd say go with the heavier barrel. Now, of course, the advantage if you are going with a Remage setup is that Remage barrels are less expensive than going with a premium barrel and having a gunsmith install it in your rifle, and you can remove and replace them at home. So ideally, if you got in a barrel and you weren't thoroughly happy with it, it's really not that big of a deal to unscrew that barrel. If you haven't put a lot of rounds through it, you're probably going to be able to sell it and recover some of your cash and then put a heavier barrel on it if you want. But I would say if you're not sure, start with that Sendero contour. If you know that you are going to build up a really heavy gun for competition, then go with a much heavier barrel. That is just my opinion, but as always, I want to hear what you guys have to say. Go ahead and leave a comment down below and tell me what taper barrel or what weight contour barrel do you prefer? Do you like a really heavy gun, or do you really like a lighter weight gun that you can tailor to the situation? I want to know what you guys have to say on it. And if you want to check out Patreon and support us, I would really appreciate it. Thanks a lot. And our next question comes from Brian, and Brian asks, Tritium night sights versus RMR for duty use at night. Brian, well, if you're asking about the RMR for duty use, I would assume that it is a possibility and your agency would allow you. So if that's the case, I would say 100% go with the RMR. There is one caveat to that. Do not go with the Tritium and fiber optic RMR. I can't remember the number offhand, but I definitely recommend you go with the battery powered RMR, something like the RMO1 or RMO7, and preferably go with the Type 2 if you're using it for duty use. The reason I say don't go with the tritium fiber optic is those are still prone to washout. So if you are in lighting conditions, like you're in a dark environment shooting into a light environment or shooting into an area that you have lit with a weapon light, you may have some problems seeing that dot. This really is not an issue with something like the RMO7, where you can do a manual brightness setting, and then that is going to be pretty much good for an entire year, and swap the battery out when you do your armors inspections. Now, tritium sights are a situation that has been the norm in law enforcement for quite some time, but I really don't have any data right now. I'm trying to figure out where tritium sights began to be the norm. Because the issue that we run into nowadays with tritium sights is handheld and weapon lights have become bright enough that as soon as you light that weapon light up, or you light the handheld light up, you have created enough of a light environment that it washes out the tritium vials in the sights, and you just have the black outline of your sights. You no longer really see the green or orange glow, and green tends to be the brighter tritium, and you just really can't see it. Maybe you can see a very faint glow, but it's not going to be an aiming aid when you turn on that light. And law enforcement, armed professionals, whatever, if you're pointing a weapon at somebody, you better be lighting them up so you can identify them. The only place that tritium sights really help out is if you're running under night vision. If you're running night vision and you drive the gun out, you can see the tritium through the night vision, but with something like an RMR, you're much better off. So mainly for law enforcement purposes, I think we're getting to a point where tritium really is not a necessity anymore. I don't know that it ever really was a necessity, and you may be better off, if you're stuck with iron sights, going with something like a regular black steel rear and maybe a fiber optic front. My opinion has started changing. If you guys are really interested in that, I may do a full video, try to schedule some night fire time, and we'll talk about iron sights versus tritium sights versus fiber optic sights versus a electric optical sight. It's really a very in-depth conversation that may be outside the scope of this. But if you're asking tritium versus RMR, there's no question the RMR will be faster. It will give you a very finite aiming point in a much larger variety of situations than the tritium iron sights will give you. And I'm not hating on tritium. I have quite a few guns. There for a while, all of my defensive guns have had tritium sights on them. But again, I'm starting to sway away from that, and it's just experience looking over those sights in a very wide variety of environments, coming from work, coming from a law enforcement patrol environment, and coming from quite a few different night shoots. So it is something I really want to do a video on in the future, but if you guys really want to see it, it may up the priority for that kind of thing. So again, drop a comment for me down below. And our next question comes from Matthew. And Matthew asks, need more videos on the MDT ACC. Do you still have one? I haven't seen or heard anything in a while. Matthew, you're right. I need to get in gear. It is actually sitting behind me here. And the ACC chassis that we have is for the Remington 700. And my Remington 700 stock has dwindled significantly. The rifle I have in front of me, the AAC-SD, is our chassis test mule, and you can see right now it is in the Magpul 700 Pro chassis. We are going to wrap this review up hopefully this week and get it out. We got the deadline review coming up this week, and we'll get that out, and then we will do some more detailed stuff with the modular driven technology adjustable core chassis, because the adjustable core competition chassis really is a fantastic overall chassis. Now, obviously, we are sponsored by Modular Driven Technologies. I don't know if we will call it a review, but it's basically going to be a look at all the different features and what I feel about them, because we did the prototype. There were some things on the prototype that I didn't like. There were a lot of things on the prototype that they changed based on some of the input that I had. So we're going to get the ACC production chassis overview out fairly soon. So stay tuned on that, and we will try to get to that as quickly as we can. As you know, we've been working on this chassis for a little while now. I've got everything I need to finish that up, so we'll get that out to you, and then we will roll on to the next one. We are actually starting to have chassis stack up here that we need to get through reviewing from a wide variety of manufacturers. So we are going to get to that and get to it as quickly as possible. And our next question comes from Alex. Alex asks, do you use conditioner in your beard? Beard butter? Mine tends to get dry and scratchy. Well, Alex, I actually do use a beard oil, and we'll throw it up here if you really want to know. I tend to have the same thing. I got a really coarse beard here, so as it gets longer, it will get dry and it will get kind of scratchy. It's something you just have to deal with, but keeping beard oil in it tends to help that out. Of course, it also makes the buttstock of the rifle smell really nice, because the one I use is a tobacco and vanilla oil, and I seem to get fairly good compliments on it. So if you really care about the product that I put in my beard, I'll leave a link down below to that. And our last question is from Chris. And Chris says, what kind of shooting glasses do you recommend? What style do you recommend? And color of lens also. Do they help or hinder seeing targets and impacts? Chris, again, shooting glasses is a really, really personal topic, because all of us have different shaped faces. And with precision rifles, shooting glasses, it's really, really important to get ones that fit you perfectly, because what I find here is ones that have a wider nose area, when I mount the stock, very often that nose area will interfere with my view through the actual rifle scope. It'll start to impinge on that sight picture. So I like a really wide open, very small nose piece type shooting glass. And recently I've been using the Oakley Tombstones. Those are probably my favorite for precision rifle shooting. The Tombstones really just have earpieces that attach on the sides, and then they have the nose piece in the middle, but all the rest of it is wide open, so you don't have to worry about the top or the nose piece really intruding into your view. The Tombstones also, they come in clear and prism. I've got the set, so I can swap out either clear or prism lenses depending upon what the lighting conditions are. If it is really, really bright out, I will probably run the prism lenses. They tend to knock down some of the blue and just give me a little bit better sight picture. If it is darker conditions or overcast, then a lot of times I will just run the clear and be good to go there. If I'm shooting video as well as shooting a rifle, then very often I will run the clear because they give me a little bit more control over the picture I'm getting on the cameras, even if it's bright outside. But if I'm not shooting video and just running the rifles, then I will run the Tombstones. Now, they have a really nice set of earpieces that will fit under over-the-ear Pro. They don't really flare out my ear cups much, so I get a really good seal with the gel ear cups on the MSA Swordens. So you do have to be aware that some of the thicker ear stems on ear protection can break the seal on your ear Pro and cause you some problems. The one thing I don't like about the Tombstones is, at least for me, if I am not wearing ear Pro, they tend to fall off very easily if I look down, because there is really no frame around the lens, so there's nothing to provide that torsion to squeeze them into the sides of your head. When I'm wearing ear Pro, the ear Pro hold them in place. When I'm not, then they can fall off if I don't put a strap across the back of them. Now for handgun shooting, especially on sunny days, I'm usually wearing a set of Gators Raptors. Those are my general daily wear type sunglasses. They are ballistically rated, so I don't have to worry about pieces of lead or pieces of copper coming off of steel. And most of the time when I'm shooting handgun, those are the ones that I'm wearing, because when I'm shooting handguns, I'm squared up to the target and I drive the gun right out in front of me. So the part of the frame that is above my eye and the part of the frame that goes around my nose really doesn't intrude in the sight picture when I'm shooting handguns. So for that, I don't often bring out the special glasses unless, again, if it's overcast, if it's dark, if it's a night shoot, then I'll break out the Tombstones. When I was up at SIG Academy, that's what I was wearing through the whole time up there, because again, they are pretty much wide open, and when you have the clear lenses in, you can totally forget that you're wearing any kind of safety glasses. And that's really one of the things I like about ear and eye Pro, is when they fit you well enough or fit the situation well enough that you can just forget they're there. So that is my personal opinion. Of course, we will leave links to all of those down below so you guys can check them out. We're going to have a full review of the Gators eyewear coming up. We talked to Gators at SHOT Show. They've given us some samples in the past. I actually got 2 samples of their eyewear at the 2018 SHOT Show, and I've worn them through an entire year, and so now I've got some good input for you. Gaiters are kind of interesting because they have an actual aluminum frame. Now, of course, they're made in the U.S., so that's a great thing, but the aluminum frame offers you something that you don't get with your regular polymer frames like you have with most Oakleys, and that is the fact that you can bend them to fit your head in a wide variety of shapes, and they'll stay how you bend them. So that's kind of important if you've got a little bit of a strange shaped melon, or if you just want to tune that fit to be perfect with your ear pro or whatever, then being able to bend them into shape works very, very well. Now, I did have some hesitation because they are aluminum. That means if you leave your sunglasses in the sun, they are going to get really, really hot, and you're going to brand yourself when you put them on. I had some concerns about when we get into the really cold winter weather, how they were going to act. But I've had them out in very cold weather so far, and there is that little bit of a shock period if you leave them in your car overnight and they are below freezing when you stick them on your face, but they very quickly warm up and they come to equilibrium with your body temperature, and then after that, even if you're out in the blowing cold, they don't seem to cause any problems, especially when you're wearing ear pro over the ear stems, and of course the part that contacts your nose does have some rubber nose pads in there, so you don't have aluminum sitting on the bridge of your nose. So we'll get to a review of those a little bit later on once we get some other projects wrapped up. And that's it for this Mail Call Mondays. If you guys have liked this episode, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. If you got questions over anything we've covered, you can leave comments in the comments section down below or send them to us on Facebook or Twitter. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast app, you can send questions to us at 8541tactical@gmail.com. And until next time, get out and shoot.